And remember that the Rendezvous is the home for some of those competitions as your home for the Luxemburg-Casco bowling team. I think the middle set is going to be the good one. So Corey, let's start with you. Well, let you get that on there. Hey Corey, welcome. And how is I know obviously the first match you start this week, but how does the team look so far this year? It looked like you had like an alumni match maybe last Friday. Get a little bit of a flavor of your team, so how do they kind of stand out right now?
Yeah, that's right. First, thanks for having us. It's awesome. You guys always do this. Yeah, we had the alumni come out on Friday night. We usually do a scrimmage with them to start the season after our first week of practice, and it's usually a good time. You know, these guys get to play against guys who were on their team last year, and some of them who they've known for the last 3 or 4 years, and some who are 15 years older than them. So it's a fun game. It's a good little tune-up for us at the end of a long, challenging week usually. So. Yeah, we saw some good things. We saw some things that we want to work on, and that kind of informs how we approach this week. So.
And how do the alumni kind of help you get a flavor of what your team is capable of? Because as you mentioned, you got some that are just fresh out, and they're able to kind of pop back and no moment's notice. 15 years removed, I would think they might be a little bit rougher depending on their fitness.
Yeah, there's a pretty wide range sometimes. Fortunately, soccer is one of those games that guys will continue to play for 20 years, and if you know the fundamentals, especially the kind of guys who come out and join us, it's usually a lot of former captains, a lot of guys who were very good players, maybe to the detriment of the challenge these guys have been playing against that team. But yeah, it's a great challenge for them, and usually it's two good styles going against each other, and trying to make sure nobody comes out with any injuries or anything and has a good time.
And you have 2 games coming up this week, home against Dakota on Thursday, away at Seymour. How hard are those back-to-back matches, especially this early in the season where, I'm sure fitness-wise you feel like you're there and stuff like that, but maybe technically you're still working on it?
Yeah, definitely. As a coach, I'm always conscious of the load we're putting on those guys. We like to usually do a Tuesday, Friday schedule so they have that extra day of rest during the week and not have back-to-back or just one day of rest. I'm sure if you ask them, they just won't play, right? So this is always fun because we've had 8 days of prep. We're challenging the boys, working really hard in practice, and now we get to test ourselves. So back-to-back might be a little challenging, but we're excited to see some live action.
During the practices so far, what has stuck out to you? What does this team do that is maybe a little bit more advanced than you usually are at this point of the season?
Yeah, I think one thing I have to call out is, aside from the on-the-field stuff, this is just a group that has really good chemistry. They've been playing together for a while. They play a lot of soccer together during the off-season. They love to get together. They seem to be good friends, most of the group. So it's fun to work with them because the chemistry, the vibes have been really good. The mentality that they've brought to practice has been really good. In terms of practice, I think I love the intensity that they've had for the first 8 days here. We install a lot of stuff in terms of the style of play and set pieces today and all kinds of other things, but they've been very focused. They've been really receptive to all the things we're putting together, and the intensity has been really good.
Now, I'm sure, we'll get to this probably later on with the players here that we'll introduce here, but I remember in '94, when the World Cup was stateside, everybody got jacked up about soccer. Did you kind of see that this year where maybe there would be some off-season workouts and stuff like that while the World Cup is going on? Everybody was they just kind of added to that excitement on the pitch?
Yeah, it's always fun to come to some of the open sessions and hear the boys chatting about the games that they've watched in the World Cup, or we're having no banter about some of the late goals that happened in this World Cup and some of the exciting games. So it is fun. It's just another thing that you see the rest of the world and how they love the sport, and obviously we love it, but it's cool to see that shared with maybe more of the community and more of the other people that we guys out there.
And taking a look at the season ahead here, looking obviously go deeper into the tournament. What are some of the games on your schedule that you're looking forward to playing, not just because of obviously conference standing and stuff, but just to kind of get a good measuring stick on where your team's at?
Yeah, absolutely. I know these guys, just like every year, but I know these guys are very focused this year on every one of those conference games. I know that's a huge focus for them. We ended the season last year on a high note. We beat the conference champion in the playoffs, and I think that gives them a lot of confidence. So definitely looking forward to those. We do have Luxemburg on the schedule. They're a team that's gone to state a couple of times recently. They've moved up to our division. Got Sturgeon Bay. We'll go down to Milwaukee to the Port Washington Invitational. So definitely some really quality teams that we like to test ourselves against. See a great style of play, see that challenge, see how we measure up, and take that as a measuring stick to improve as we go through the season.
Introduce your players.
Yeah, so first we've got Carson Folder. He's a senior. He is our goalkeeper. And we've got Connor Hart, a junior, who is typically playing either midfield or attacking goal. So,
all right, so Carson, we'll start with you first. One of I believe the lone returning all-conference player from a season ago, and it seems like goalkeepers, whether it be soccer, hockey, field hockey, I'm trying to think of some other sports with goalkeepers, there's always like a screw loose with those people. I mean, you're just like, okay, kick the ball at me, I'm ready to go. First of all, what is it about playing goalkeeper that you enjoy so much?
I love the throw. The last time of the defense, really. Everyone looks at you in those late game moments. You can be the deciding factor of winning and losing the game. And that's just what I feel like I love about the game is.
When did you kind of gravitate to that position? Because, now that I coach my girls and stuff like that, they don't even have goalkeepers until 10U soccer, I think, is when we first finally get it, maybe 8U a little bit. But when did you kind of know, I want to put on the mitts and stand in the net for 80 minutes?
Probably right around that U10, U13 range, going into the control.
And what is it like for you to kind of, because you're not just stopping the ball when it comes to the net and things like that, you're kind of arranging the wall and you're pointing out different things and stuff like that. How important has that been to your development of the goalie? Because it's one thing to be like, okay, I know I got to get in front of the shot, but kind of being able to be a leader on the field and kind of quarterback where people need to be and point out where people are going so they can be successful, and ultimately that leads to your success as well.
So I feel like there's multiple ways of that, like as you said, shot stopping and also being a leader. So I feel like it's also a huge role to be organizing that well and being a leader on the field, even if it's a corner kick or a goal kick, just organizing set pieces and getting the ball where everyone where they need to be as well.
And where have you kind of seen your development over the course of your career at Luxemburg-Casco? Where have you seen maybe the biggest growth?
I would say probably overall this season. These coaches have really helped me out so much over the last 4 years, and with everything shot stopping and positioning and reflexes and handling and everything like that. Just getting me right over the moving that right here.
Awesome. Well, give me a number 1 through 96. We'll learn a little bit about yourself here. You've already heard some of the answers so far, so luckily there's plenty of numbers to choose from.
Maybe around 88.
88. All right. What's one word to describe your season so far? That hasn't started yet. So in this case, tell me about your practices.
Let's see overall friendly and focused.
That'll change on Thursday, right?
Yeah.
Take the Connor right away there. So we'll pass it down to Connor here as we wrap up the boys soccer portion of our program. Football is still to go here. And Connor, we talked to Carson about kind of staying back and being that last line of defense. Often you got to insert yourself into that conversation well before Carson gets into it. What's kind of your favorite part of playing your position?
I like midfield because I can kind of just play the whole field and be everywhere. I can like run the ball to and also play it up to a forward, so I could play it back and I can kind of do everything.
Now, is there a professional soccer player that you try to emulate your game after? Try to kind of bring some of his game to what you drew on the pitch?
Maybe like messy around. There's a lot.
Okay. And when you look ahead to the season, are there games that you kind of have circled on your calendar, whether it be a game that didn't go your way last year that you kind of had to stew over for the last 12 months over, or what are some of those games that you kind of have marked on your calendar?
A lot of the conference games I'm really excited for. Those ones are always like good games and they're confidence to be on them. Definitely like Freedom for sure, because Freedom last year they went up 3-0 so we made a comeback and scored 4 on them, but then they scored to tie it up, so I'm hoping this year that we can beat them.
Now, a thing that wasn't a thing when I was in high school, but becomes more readily accessible just because the technology is there and stuff, is scouting a team, watching, teams and trying to maybe try and get a glimpse from that. When you prepare for a Freedom or prepare for a Wrightstown or something like that, do you watch film? Do you just try to remember last year, or how do you kind of prepare for some of these games?
We definitely watch film, see how they play, and then we also watch film on us to see what we can improve on. And then in practice, we get to depending on what we do.
When you watch film on yourself, because I think a lot of times people, like, you're so focused on the other team that sometimes you got to look inward and like, okay, we can do something better too. What's been maybe kind of the biggest thing that you've learned about your game or your team's game by just watching the film and kind of dissecting that?
On the film, you can see it like the whole field, and then you can see like what you should have done in the situation instead versus what you could do. And it can kind of show you how if you communicate well with each other, it opens up the field better. So it's going to get everybody to see the ball, and you just pass the open players.
Is there a moment last season where like all of a sudden something clicked because of that, where all of a sudden you felt like your team just played differently because of that?
Probably one that. And Freedom. So Freedom regular season game, it was confidence. We went down 3-0, but then we something just clicked because we came back in like last end of like 3/4 of the game. We scored 3 real quick, or 4 real quick for the lead against them, and then also in Marinette we went down 1-0 in regular time and we scored, and then we also went down 1-0 extra time and we scored. So it brought in the penalties and we ended up winning the game.
And Carson said his work is friendly. Corey said how your team just gets together real well. How does that kind of help you on the pitch to know that everybody's kind of friends with each other and get along together real well?
It helps because everybody's got your back and you just trust everybody with the ball and just trust what they say to you. And everybody listens and not excited at all. And you just kind of play the team and it's just better than every bit.
All right, and then finally, you've had a chance now to think of that magic number where we're going to learn a little bit more about you. What is your number between 1 and 96?
14.
14. Okay, we're really, Coach is going to learn something about you right here. What's worse, conditioning or early morning practices?
Probably conditioning. We've never had early morning practice, but I mean, I just want to play soccer, so I mean, it don't matter when. But yeah, conditioning is wrong, so definitely not as fun.
I'm glad we're seeing it now that, well, Pound's still here, so he heard that. The old adage, our sport is everybody else's punishment, so it sounds like that's the case for you. So Luxemburg-Casco soccer, once again, 2 games in consecutive days this week. They'll play at home against Akana on Thursday, then they're away at Seymour on Friday. Corey, everybody else, Connor, Carson, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck this season. All right, boys soccer, thank you for joining us, and we'll wrap things up with the football team as we are over, but